Shemai everyone, welcome to this walkthrough of how to make and edit science films, specifically this time in iMovie. Now, iMovie's been around an awfully long time, and it's free if you have a Mac already. And it's got better and better over the years to a point now where, when recommending software, I say if you've got a Mac, this can do the majority of what you need it to do. It's got some big limitations to it. There's a few things that make it not the perfect software even if you've got a Mac. However, if you're just looking to put a few clips together and tell your story, this is absolutely wonderful. So if you've got a Mac, I do recommend using iMovie for this. If you want to follow along, we can do a full walkthrough of how to use iMovie and the trials and tribulations that you'll have along the way. And if you want to edit along, you can go to sciencestorylab.co.uk and you can download the rushes, the video clips and the music that we use, so you can download it and edit along with us. So if we take a look at the main screen that you see when you open iMovie, it'll look a bit like this. So we've got a couple of different panels, specifically the one at top left, the one at top right, and then the whole timeline down here. So this one at top left, most software is kind of similar in the way that it puts panels together and then a timeline underneath. A lot of them will look like this. So in this first panel is actually media. So we can import our media here. It says import media, kind of gives it away. And then we've also got audio, titles, backgrounds, transitions, and I would add color in up here as well. We'll look at color too. But this is a bit of a walkthrough about how you go about editing in iMovie. So we'll import our media first. We'll edit it all down. We'll pull a narrative and a story out. And then we'll do the audio after that. We'll look at titles, transitions, color, and then we'll do our export as well. So really, most of what you need will come through these panels up here. We can also access different parts of them and different things as well by using this playback area. So this is where we look at playing back our video clips and our timeline. We'll see them all in here. And then above it, you've got all these extra buttons, which will do extra things. So we can do color balance in here, color correction, cropping. It got some advanced features like stabilization. Don't go overboard with that. You can look at volume. You can look at noise reduction. If there's like a heater in the background or it's windy outside, a little bit of wind, again, don't go overboard with it. We can look at speed, filters and audio effects and clip information. All good things to look at and to be aware that they're there. Then down the bottom, we've got this whole section, which is our timeline. And this is the main workspace, the main workflow area. And we're going to start editing and pulling our narrative together specifically in this spot. Now, I've got to be honest, you need to be completely organized up front when it comes to editing. The more organization you do when filming, the more organization you do when ingesting or getting all those video clips onto your computer, the more organized you are there, the easier you will find the editing process. I even go to the extent that I name the files differently sometimes if I'm working in a certain workflow, and then when I pull them in, they'll be called certain things. So when I pull things in to my media section, sometimes on certain pieces of software, you can actually pull them in as folders, and then they'll stay in those folders. You know exactly where they are. iMovie's a little bit different. So if we want to import this media, it's gone straight to my desktop and knows where I want to get it from because I've been here before. So I've organized everything into A-roll, B-roll, drone, logos and graphics, and music. And all that means is my A-roll is the primary narrative, the primary interview that's going to drive the story forward. The B-roll adds context and extra things. It's the secondary information, secondary video. Drone is also B-roll, but I've separated that out into drone separately. Logos and graphics, so like pictures and logos are in there, and then music as well. And I could pull them all in from here. How I like to import media, though, is by grabbing a folder and then finding all my folders, exactly what I need, and then highlighting them all, and then dragging and dropping into my media section. So there they go into there. It processes them all and then it puts them in there. So now with this, I want to be back in iMovie. We've got all our media in this section. And iMovie is actually really good at showing you what it is you're looking at. So I can see quite quickly by just moving my mouse cursor backwards and forwards along here, what it is I'm actually looking at. And I think we take that for granted with iMovie. It's quite a powerful feature that makes our editing process really easy to be able to see quite quickly what we want to be editing and putting into our movie. So at the top here now we've got, even though they're not in folders, they're still in organized areas. So I can see that all this is my graphics and logos. I can see that all this is audio, and I know that that's my music, all there. And then all the rest of this stuff, whether it's drone footage or shot handheld on the camera, is all the B-roll, all the extra stuff that adds context. Great context, just there with Joby. And then the stuff down the bottom then, all this is my main interview with Tamara, who's our scientist and climber. And that's going to add in that extra narrative. It's going to be her talking is going to be the main drive of our story through all of this. So I want to make around a 60-second clip here. So we're going to edit in our timeline. We're going to go from left over here, and we're going to go all the way to the right over here. And what we mean then is in a linear format, we're going to start from 0 seconds, and we're going to go all the way through to 60 seconds. Sometimes what you can do is you can edit, you can put your narrative in, and then you can put the main story bits, and then you can edit around it, add in extra stuff at the end and then at the front. Just the way I like to do it is edit from left to right, 0 seconds up to 60 seconds, how I would want to view it as the audience. So when we start, I always like to add in context. So where we are, what we're doing, and an introduction to the main person in our clip. If you're interviewing a scientist, you might want to think about adding in context that's them doing their science work. We've seen the stereotypes of them in the lab with a white coat on doing the science. Perhaps steer away from the stereotypes if you can, but adding context into who that person is and what they're doing is great. So let's look at where we are to begin with. So maybe, this interview takes place next to a glacier, the Glacier de Tour in the Alps. So maybe this clip is exactly what I want. One thing you might feel inclined to do straight away is, even though this is 40 seconds worth of a clip, is just to drag it all in. Oh, not all of them. That's 42 clips altogether. Just the one clip. Let's click outside of that, click back on it. Drag that in, and then that's 40 seconds there on our timeline. And then we go in and we edit down just what we want from that. I don't actually want all of that, and there's a quicker way of doing it as well. So I'm just going to delete that out just by hitting backspace. And then I'm going to find out the bit that I want from the thumbnail, and then I'm just going to choose that. So what I can do is I can drag in from the side here and just choose that section maybe, and I can drag in from the other side too, like that, and then drag in that. I can hit plus and it'll drop it into my timeline, or I can drag it down as well. So that's just 3 seconds. That's pretty good. That's what I want. If I wanted that to be a little bit quicker, say I had, for example, that much, and I just want a 10-second intro, 6 seconds is too much there. What I can do here is just make that a little bit quicker. So I can click on it and then go up to all my great panels up here, all my great little buttons that do wonderful things. And I can hit the accelerometer version, or the accelerator, which says speed on it, and I can just speed that up. I can actually reverse it as well, which is really handy in some instances with like drone shots and B-roll and things, is to make that backwards. And because there's no like water flow in or people speaking or anything, you can't tell that it's backwards on here. You can tell it's backwards there because it has a little play backwards button. I don't want that. I like it forwards, but I do want it to be a little bit faster. So I can hit fast just there, and it edits it down into 3 seconds. So I've already got my 3 second, I edited 6 seconds into 3 seconds. What I can do is edit 6 seconds into 12 seconds, for example. There's not enough information there for me to do that. So it's easy enough speeding things up. It's harder slowing stuff down. And we'll have tutorials about how to do that, make slow motion and things separately. But for now, know that if you've got a clip that's in normal speed, you can't then slow it down. You can only really speed it up. So this looks great to me. Rising over the glacier. It's 3 seconds now. Perhaps we'll add in a little bit of the mountains as well. So another way that I can do this is by clicking I at some point, maybe there. Hit I for in, just my in point, and then maybe there for out is my out point. I'll hit plus. That'll add it into my timeline. And again, that's way too long. If I want to zoom out at any point, I can use this and just zoom out. So that's 15 seconds. I mean, that's way too long. So let's do the same thing again, where we just speed this up, and we'll hit fast. If I want to make it even faster, what I can actually do is grab this little circle as well and drag right in. And you can see just here, that speed getting quicker, 6 seconds currently. Let's make that 3 seconds. Just like the first one. And then when we play it back, hit play. There we go. We get a nice overview of where we are. Next up, I want to introduce Tamara. So I want her, really what I want is probably some far away shots of her to begin with, and then maybe some face shots for when she starts talking. So maybe I'll use this one where she's walking along a little ridge. I for my in point, O for my out point, hit the plus and it'll add it into my timeline. So that's 9 seconds altogether. That's great. That's what I wanted. And then maybe a shot of her face, and I'll have her talking when this plays over the top. So I'll hit I for my in. I think I caught her off guard at this point. It doesn't look a freeze frame. But there to there. And I'll add plus. Okay, so that's now 12 seconds, which is more than the 10-second intro I wanted. However, what we can do is we can play our her talking, her interview, underneath this particular clip. So it'll actually be a 10-second intro, and then she'll start talking after that. So as a 10-second intro, that's added context to where we are, and it's added in an introduction to Tamara as well. So let's head into our actual narrative, the thrust of this section. And if I scrub through this, I can see that she's talking. What I'll do is I'll go to the front, and I'll hit spacebar, and that'll start us playing.
Okay, my name's...
That was me asking questions.
Tamara. I'm a climber. I love alpine climbing. I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite place in the world.
Nice. She's actually told us there what her name is and where we are. So instead of hitting I and O, I'll just hit O on this section, and it'll take it from the front of the clip right through to that out point. And I'll drag it in. So I didn't press plus that time, I just dragged that down. And now you can see that with these ones, we didn't have any audio. The clips just didn't come with audio. But with this one, it does. And you can see that little waveform down the bottom. That's the audio waveform. And this can be really, really good when trying to edit. If I want, I can right-click and detach that. And I can see it a bit bigger, and I can manipulate it then as well. But for this, I'm going to hit Command and Z to go back and keep it in with that, because when I edit, I want that all to be attached together. So we can watch that waveform, and we can associate it with the words that she says. So it'll sound like...
So can you tell us your name and what you do?
Okay, my name's Tamara.
So that was me talking at the start, and then Tamara started talking.
What you do?
Okay, my name's Tamara.
So my name's Tamara, I think starts around there. So what I want to do here is I want to cut the clip, and every bit of software will have a different way of saying this. It'll be a cut, or it'll be a razor, or it'll be a blade, something to do with the old style fashion of kind of clipping and cutting the actual old style film. On here in iMovie, it's Command and B, which is the blade function. And you click cut it there, and then you can click on it and hit the backspace, and it'll do something called a ripple delete, which means it'll take that footage and it'll move this footage to butt up against this footage. It gets rid of the gap in between. So if I hit it and press backspace, it moves everything up because it assumes you don't want a massive gap in your footage. You've assumed correct, iMovie. So when I play back now.
My name's Tamara. I'm a climber.
Great, that's where we wanted to start. There is another way of doing that, and let's see what it sounds like at the end.
I love alpine climbing. I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite place in the world.
Okay. If that, for example, was a little bit longer, say I played through this.
At home in the UK.
And we don't want that. You see what I did there? I held the end of this clip and actually dragged it from side to side. So you can do that to shave off the ends and the start of clips. So it's really handy to just take out that interviewer question at the start or to get a precise finish at the end.
Favourite place in the world.
Excellent. And remember what I said what I wanted to do?
My name's Tamara.
Was start her talking before she pops up on the interview. So what I can do here is actually use a different track. Now, this is one of the limitations of iMovie, is that it only allows you to have 2 tracks maximum, video tracks. So when I pull this upwards, it's going to sit on top of this, but I can't have any more. So if I wanted graphics again on top of this, I sadly couldn't have it. So if I want to go from this.
My name's Tamara. I'm a climber. I love alpine climbing. I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite place.
So maybe actually what I want is a little bit more of this. Put that there, so it sounds.
Name and what you do.
Okay, my name's Tamara. I'm a climber. I love alpine climbing. I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite.
Okay, but I don't want my me talking in there.
Name and what you do.
Okay, my name's Tamara. I'm a climber.
But when we get to the audio section, we'll fix that. So that's not a problem. So we've got about 20 seconds so far. Wicked. Next, we want a little bit more narrative. So let's try the next clip.
I grew up with them as my playgrounds.
That's what we want. That's great.
So I grew up in the mountains. My mum is
That's what we want, right?
half German. So I grew up with the mountains. I grew up with them as my playground. So
excellent. So she's given us a bit of background on who she is and why she loves the mountains. Again, I can see now down here that she doesn't start talking till about there. So I can just grab that and pull it to this side. And that should be where she starts talking.
So I grew up in the mountains. My mum is Austrian, so I'm half German. So I grew up with the mountains. I grew up with them as my playground. So
great. A little bit of backstory, a little bit about her, and a little bit of her, what she thinks about exploration and why exploration is important. That's what we want to get to. That's the drive of this. Let's see if we can find any more on that.
Austria, just because I grew up. I got to do a bit of rock climbing there.
This is a little bit of the edit process where you are going through each of the clips, trying to find out where the narrative comes from and how to make a good story from it.
Tall glacier behind me, behind that.
So just talking about context, where we are.
Down the valley to my left, you can probably see
Shams on the bottom.
It's a different thing to.
Here we go. Adventure means different things to.
To have the same adventure, I think exploration and adventure.
Ooh.
I think exploration and adventure is a very personal thing. I think it means a different thing to every single person. You know, you don't have.
So whilst she was talking, then you might have seen that I hit I where I wanted it to come in and O where I wanted it to go out. Might have to just tidy that up slightly, but let's see what it sounds like.
Exploration and adventure as my playground. Some exploration and adventure.
So I just want to tidy that up there.
Exploration and adventure is a very personal thing. I think it means a different thing to every single person. You know.
There's a little bit of I'm going to tidy that up by zooming in and just pulling that backwards.
To every single person.
Excellent. And then let's see if we can, with 34 seconds in already, 60 seconds is not a long time to get a narrative across. So you really got to be brutal.
By someone at some point, but again,
so this is a good bit.
If you think about it in a very general sense, yes, most places in the world have been explored.
Ooh.
If you think about it in a broad meaning,
Oh, here we go.
Broad meaning. If you think about it in a very general sense, yes, most places in the world have been explored by someone at some point. But again, exploration, like adventure, is such a personal thing. So just because somewhere has been explored by someone doesn't mean you shouldn't do the same exploration and explore the same place, because again...
Nice. So that's a little bit about exploration. I'm going to put that in at the end. So that's 23 seconds. That pushes up to 57 seconds altogether. We're getting really close to what we want from our minute.
I think exploration has a very broad meaning.
What I might do is just cut a little bit of the middle of this clip.
Exploration has a very broad meaning. If you think about it in a very general sense, yes, most places in the world have been explored by someone at some point. But again, exploration, like adventure, is such a personal thing. So just because somewhere...
I think I'm going to cut it out in the middle there. I'm going to hit... put my playhead, that line there, hit Command and B, and then...
Yes, most places in the world. If you... Broad meaning.
And then, same again, Command B, and I'm going to actually take out that entire middle section. So that takes us down to 45 seconds. However, I've got some stuff I want to put in at the end, some B-roll, and some stuff in the middle as well. I think that's perfect.
Has a very so just because
broad meaning we want
has a very broad meaning. So just because somewhere has...
There we go. Okay, so we've got a bunch of different clips. I think that drives the narrative though. 46 seconds altogether. We need a few seconds at the end to wrap up, but we also need a few seconds in the middle just to have a little bit of music too. So what we're going to do now is add in that end section, that B-roll. In fact, I'm going to add this into the middle bit. Let's add in a little bit of her walking there. So hit I, then spacebar to play, and then O is what I'm going to have. I'm going to put that right in the middle. And maybe this bit too. A little bit of her grabbing hold of the rocks. Yeah, the I, and then O. I'm going to add that section in. I just press plus, just add it in at the end. I'm just going to jig that back to the middle. So it plays this. Excellent. Around 52 seconds. I just want 8 seconds then to wrap it up. A little bit of extra context. Let's put... I know. So it's a good drone shot of her somewhere. There it is. Walking up this bit. So the I and O. Add that in. It goes in at the end. That's actually where I do want it. And then there's this bit where she's walking up. And it looks like that might even be the same spot. It was a while ago we filmed this, so I'm not sure. So it looks a lot more like...
Because
yeah, I think that works well. Okay. So that's... Oh, we've hit bang on a minute there. Excellent. Audio's next. Let's take a look at the audio now. We've got our narrative down. So we could look at audio here. This is sound effects, music, things like that, kind of what we want. However, what we really want to do is go through this and look at the audio from the interviewee, just make sure that all this is right. So I'm going to go to the volume section and hit this.
Climbing, I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite place in the world. So I grew up...
I mean, what I could do is go to this and bring that down or up, depending on how I want it. You can hit the auto button if you like, or just mute it all together. That's okay too. I mean, it's not okay in this context. But when I'm playing this back, I can either do it up here,
alpine climbing. I love
or I can come down to this section and I can drag it down and up just here as well. So there's a couple of different ways that I can do it. And in this kind of software, that normally does happen. There's normally a few different ways that you can do it. But for this, we did the microphones on the day. And we made sure that they were at kind of the right volume. So these are going to sound good, and they're going to sound consistent, which is what we want.
Chamonix, it's my favourite.
I can put that back to 100.
I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite place in the world. So,
And you'll notice that in this one, what we've got is, if I zoom in, these just peek it into the yellows. That's fine. What you don't want is to peek them into the reds, into there. So just be aware that they can do that. They can peek right up into the reds if you let them. If they're too loud on the day, don't let them do that. There's no audio associated with this clip, but with this clip there is, and we don't actually want that. So again, it's a few different ways we can do that. We can grab this level and pull it down to mute it if that's what we want. We can turn it off in the audio section, just there. Or what we can do is we can right click detach audio, and we can click on it and press backspace, and that gets rid of it altogether. And then you've got rid of the audio from that track. All of those are absolutely fine. I tend to leave it in and just mute it, because then you're not taking the audio away from it, you just mute it in case you want it back later. I don't know why you would. But there's not going to be silence there.
And adventure is
There's actually going to be a little bit of music playing in the background. So let's add that in. We got a whole different video on where to find music for putting into this kind of stuff. We're actually putting a whole series of music together as well, so for scientists to use to put in their footage. However, for this, I've got an annual license for Soundstripe, which is a way of getting music that doesn't have copyright infringements with it. So let's listen to a couple of these and see what they sound like. It's a bit too much. That's I don't like vocals to go in with my track, so maybe not. It's kind of upbeat. That's way too much. What about this one? Much better. Okay, so for this, a good way you could drag the entire track in and then just cut a bit out. But a good tip is get the front end and the back end, and you've got automatic then intros and outros to it. And what I mean by that is, and I'm going to zoom back out here, is if you add this in, great. That's going to be let's do 30 seconds. And then do I to get the in point, and the out point is the end, and drop that into. In fact, what I want is, that bit. And then I'm going to chop off a little bit. I'm going to press Command B and blade it. Delete. Drop that down to like 30 seconds. There we go. And bring that into there. Excellent. So now what we've got is it'll play through, and where this middle section is, because it'll be in fact, here's another good tip. Make sure that connection point is under where she's talking. And because of that, then, like there, you won't hear her, the connection being made. So it's a little bit easier. So through all of this section, I don't really want her. I want to listen to her. I don't want to listen to the music. So where she starts talking there, I'm going to Command B. I'm going to blade it there. I'm going to do the same there and there. So in all the sections where she's talking, what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to bring down the level of the music so that we can hear her. Because otherwise it'll sound...
I love alpine climbing. I love coming back to...
like that. Take some of the audio out of that section. Let's zoom in on there. Where's the audio gone there? Oh, lost some of the audio for that. We'll get it back in a little bit. So when it plays back,
Chamonix, it's my favourite place.
We want this music to go down, right? So we'll just put it down to around about, 15%. There or thereabouts. We want it up for this section because this is just some B-roll it's playing, and then down for this section. Again, 15% or so. So it goes.
Exploration and adventure is a very
And
personal
drops down.
thing. I think it means a different thing. And explore the same place because.
There we go. So you see it dips down when she's talking and then goes back up when she's not talking. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so that's a good bit of music in there. Starts it as an intro. Rises up. If there's no natural intro to it, if there's no natural fade in, what you can do is grab these sections down here and pull them across. So that then gives you an artificial introduction, an artificial fade into the audio. You can do the same for fade outs as well at the end. That's fine too. Great. Okay, so we've got a little intro section, a little introduction to Tamara. We've got our first bit of an interview, a little bit of a break for the audience, and then this last section then is that little out. Perfect. Okay, so what we want to do next is have a think about the titles that go with it. We need to look at transitions. We need to look at color and a few other bits too. So there's still a lot to do, but that's the main crux of the editing process. That's getting your narrative together, what it's going to look like, doing the audio and all the rest. So it now looks and sounds good. Let's add in some titles. Let's show, I'm not going to put a title into the film, but I'm going to put a title into Tamara talking. So let's look at, zoom in slightly, move my playhead to around there, because this is where I want my title to be. Because I want it to come up with Tamara and what she does. So we've moved on from audio, we're on titles now. And we're just going to add something in. So we can look at these here by moving across. And some of these, I mean, they can get cheap quite quick. So we don't want something that looks like this, right? I mean, for some of your videos, you might want that. For normally what we do in science filmmaking is very much documentary style and less stylized. It's more of the focus is on the person, it's on the scientist, is on the wildlife, is on whatever else. So we don't want to take the focus away from them. So what we'll do is we'll add in something like a lower third that looks like this. A lower third is something like that is in the lower third. And you can see it creates that little yellow line there. To when I butt it up against that, I know that it's going to change, or it's going to stop when it moves on to the next camera angle, which is what I want. I'm going to change that by clicking up here to Tamara. She is a climber / scientist. Oh, scientist. Cool. I can change the font if I want to something a little bit better. Futura. Excellent. I can change the size to maybe that's a little bit big. 58. That's great. And I'm going to change where it is as well. I don't want it over her feet. I want it on the other side, just there. I'm going to add a space or two in at the end. So that it's a little bit further over. Awesome. Do I want it in bold? Yeah, I do. Okay, if I want to change the text color, that's there as well. And change that text color. But that's what I want for now. That's excellent. So when I play that back.
I love coming back to Chamonix. It's my favourite place in the world.
There you go. So it animates in like that, and then it disappears when it changes. We'll notice that when it moves from one thing to another, that it's just a jump cut, right? So let's go back to this bit, for example.
To every single person, I think.
These are all jump cuts. So we want to change that up. So what we can do, we've done with titles. We've added just the one in. I think that's all that this one needs. And it's just that one little section there. What I want to do is go to this and go to transitions. Now, in transitions, like titles, they can get out of control quite fast. If I zoom in on this bit, I can add in puzzle in the middle and you just drag it down and drop it in between the video clips. And then now that looks like...
To every single person. I think exploration has a very broad...
You see what it's also done is this transition the audio as well as the video.
To every single person. I think exploration has...
I don't like that. What else can we have? We can have a circle.
Broad meaning. So just...
Oh, you can actually tell much on that. I'm going to hit Command Z a couple of times to go back. How about a cube? So look at that.
Every single person. I think exploration has a very...
You can see what I mean, that back in the 90s, that might have been great, is less great at the moment. So let's fix it. For transition, a simple, easy thing that you can do...
Every single person. I think exploration has...
Is, I'm just going to clip a little bit of audio off the front of there, is actually just change the camera angle. And it's difficult when you've only got one camera that you're filming with, but you can then punch in and out and make it look like there's a second camera angle. So what I'm going to do is there's B-roll there, then it goes into her talking, then it's a middle section, then it's her talking again, and then we're out on the other side. So what I really want is this angle to be slightly different. So I'm going to use the transform tool. I'm going to come to crop to fill, and then I'm going to pull in this section, there and there, and come to maybe there, hit enter, and see what that looks like. So now we're playing it back. It's probably a little bit too much. She shifts her position, which is something I'm not overly fond of. So let's move it across. But we've punched in a long way, so let's see.
Single person. I think exploration...
I think it's fine. Maybe come out slightly, so she's got a bit more headroom. And then I think that's fine.
Every single person. I think exploration has a very broad meaning. So
it's not perfect, but it's a way of cutting in and out to make it look like you've got that second camera angle. Don't zoom in too much, because the more you zoom in, you're digitally cropping, so you're losing resolution. So it's going to look worse and worse the more and more that you punch in. So just make sure that you're not punching in too much, because it'll start to look bad after a while. But I think that looks good. We're going to do the same thing over here on this clip that we've lost a bit of audio from. That's fine for now. Let's punch in on this as well. So crop. There's also this Ken Burns thing where you can choose a start point. You can choose an end point. I can actually make it go backwards too. So that's the start and that's the end. So if I wanted to look like this as it zooms in, what I can actually do then is have it zoom out slightly. So if I hit enter there, what it does is it'll crop in and then it'll zoom back out. Like that, right? I don't actually want that, so I'm going to hit Command Z and go backwards slightly. I don't want that. Oh, I'm going to actually change it to crop to fill. That makes more sense. And I want it zoomed in slightly. Hit enter, and then we've got... Excellent. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make sure that all that looks good. I just need to make sure that the audio is back on this. I think what I did was hit mute up here. Yep. So now...
in the world. So I grew up in the mountains.
And you can see that it's actually quite a simple way of just moving between one thing and the next. Excellent. I'll zoom out. So it's looking good at the moment. So we've done all the editing, done the audio, we put some titles in, we've done transitions. We want to make sure now that it all looks okay. So we're going to go through it and check that the colors are all fine. And what I mean by that is color correction. So in this, we can go up here. We can add, there's some quite powerful tools up here. We can match color to a different clip if we want. That's really good for like skin tones and stuff. We can add white balance in. It's actually a skin tone balancer. So if I pick this clip, for example, and hit skin tone balance, I can choose where the skin tone is, hit that, and it'll adjust specifically for skin tone. And when you're color correcting and make sure the colors are right, the thing that you really want most is that the skin tones are right. We know that as people, we can hone in on that quite quickly. So having a skin tone balancer is actually really good. What we can also do is look at the color correction bit and just make sure that it all looks like it was on the day. That's how I like to think about it. Did it look like it did on the day? It's not stylized. We're not going to add in effects and things. There's some filters that you can go through. All I want to do is correct the color, make sure it's bright enough, and make sure the color is right. So on this one, I'm just going to add, I'm going to change what the darkest parts look like by bringing those up slightly. I'm going to bring those together and then push the highlights up to make it a lot brighter. This one here too. I'm going to bring this one down. So add a little bit of contrast, but then push those lights up so that it's exposed correctly. I'll add a little bit of saturation, so make the colors pop a little bit more. And it actually was this blue, this is about blue hour in the morning after sunrise. So it actually was this blue and was kind of cold. But you see now that these two clips don't match. They're actually shot at different parts of the day, which is why they don't match. But if I want to make them match, I can probably just bring this a little bit cooler. And now that's much more in line in the blueness of it. Okay, what else have we got? That clip looks fine. This one could be a little bit brighter. Maybe I'll warm it up a bit. Maybe I'll look at the skin tones and say, that's how I want it. That brings her skin tone out well, and I think looks absolutely fine. Perfect. Enter. Okay. So now we are in this section. And what we can do is just edit one of these. So let's go into the color correction. Make sure that the highlights, because the clouds are quite bright. So I'm going to bring those highlights down slightly. Maybe I'll bring the shadows up slightly as well. This section here. Bring that contrast up, and then push the saturation up, get those prayer flags popping out. I think that looks absolutely fine. And what I can do then is I can go to copy, and then I can highlight I can highlight these. So these ones here, for example, and go to edit and paste adjustments, and I can just paste color correction. So those color corrections I've done on this one now apply to these ones. I missed out this one, so I can go back and say edit, paste adjustments, color correction. Excellent. And you can do that for multiple things. If I want to take the crop from this one, I can hit edit, copy, and I can add that into this one, edit, paste. Oops, I'll go backwards. I didn't want to paste the actual things. I just wanted to add in edit, copy, and then edit, paste adjustments, crop. There we go. So that's now the same crop as it was on the other one. So pasting adjustments, whether that's audio effects or speed or volume or whatever, is really handy when you are in these sections. I again didn't unclip that. There we go.
Exploration and adventure is a very personal thing, I think.
So that's a bit of color correction and making sure that it looks okay. I'm actually going to bring in this last one. Obviously the brightness needs to come up on this one. What I can do is take the color from this one and hit copy. And then I can hit edit, paste adjustments, color correction, and it brings the brightness right up in line with that other one. I think that looks good. Excellent. So that's the color correction done. I've just got one or two last things to add on to this now to make it right. In terms of transitions that we talked about earlier, there is one that I might add to this, and that's a fade to black. So, I mean, I could fade to white as well. Those are two that I might use. So I can bring this in and add a fade to black to the end of this, so that when we play this back, it fades out. That is a transition that I have used and I will use time and again. So in this section, what I want to also add in though is a graphic at the end of this. So I'm going to go back to my media and I'm going to go to this one. Now adding in a logo or graphics along with this you have to have a specific type. So if I try and add in, I think this one's JPEG, and I can make these as long or as short as I like, just by pulling from one side to the other. So if I want this to pop up there, I'll pull it across. And what you'll see is it's just black. You can't see anything through it because it's a JPEG and isn't a transparent file. So we don't want it. What we do want is a PNG, is that transparent file. So let's bring in this one. Pretty sure this one is a PNG. There we go. We'll drop it over the top. And I want it to come in. So I want that to maybe dissolve in at the start, and I want it to go away at the end. However, what I also want is it not to take over the entire screen. What I probably want is it just to be in this section, just up here. So let's think about doing that. Let's move it around and go to this one. Oh, I'm going to add in a transition at the start, which is just the dissolve in at the start. So let's go to this one, which is, it pops up, which is the video overlay settings. We want to come over to then picture in picture, and then we can put this wherever we want. So let's drag it to there. And when you scale it up, it keeps its proportions. So I just wanted to pop in there. And what I'd really like to do is put a little bit of shadow behind this, or like a slightly transparent background is what I probably do, just to make sure that white on white stands out, but we won't do it here. We'll just make sure we add in a fade to black at the end. Otherwise, oh, it disappears. Okay, well, maybe we'll leave it like that, but I definitely want it to fade in. Oh, it does fade in. Exactly what I want. Maybe I'll pull this across to let it fade in quicker. Like that, then it goes away. Excellent. That's what I wanted. Okay, so now we've got our whole section. We've brought the media in, we've edited it, we've done the audio on it, we've put in some titles, we've done transitions throughout, and we've put in a logo at the end. Of course, you could have that logo throughout the entire thing, just that sometimes you want it at the bottom corner, exactly the same trick, but just make sure it's on the upper track. And this is kind of where you'd want that extra track again, that extra video track again, because if you're going to put a logo throughout all of it, you'd really want it on a third track all the way at the top. So again, some of those limitations with iMovie, it's where you'd kind of, if you're starting to butt up against limitations, in iMovie then is when you start thinking about Final Cut and moving up into the more professional stuff, so you don't have those limitations anymore. Okay, but I think we're at a point now where we can have a watch of it back. We won't do it here, but we'd have a watch of this back and say, is everything correct? The audio is pulled down in the places it needs to be. It's right in the places we want it to be, and it finishes in the right place. That all looks good to me. When we want to export it then, we can go to the export button just up in the top right and hit share. And then we've got a few different things we can do. We can send it straight to YouTube if we want, or we can email it out. Though I'm not sure sending these kind of videos on email is a good idea, but I want to export the file. And I want to export the file because I want to make sure that I want to watch it back. The amount of times, and you'll find this time and time again, is that you export something and then you watch it back and there's a frame that you've missed, or there's a bit of audio that you've missed. Transition doesn't do the thing you want. You always want to just export it to desktop, have a watch of it, and if it's right, put it on YouTube or send it or whatever. Because the majority of the time it's not right. You'll just see one thing that you're like, oh my God, I wish I'd seen that earlier. So put it on your desktop and then put it on YouTube later. So let's have a think about what we want. We want to call it Tamara Climber. And we put it on our desktop. Those tags are fine, format's fine. The resolution, this is something you'll come across, and in a lot of pieces of software, they'll ask you that up front, what resolution you want to edit it all in. For iMovie is kind of at the end. I actually shot all this in 4K, so I can export in 4K, but watch what happens to this size when you put it in 4K. It jumps by more than double. So if you've got space on your hard drive, then you can export it in 4K. The majority of the time, 1080p is absolutely fine. And all that is the resolution. 1080p is HD, so it is actually fine. Most people watch stuff in that anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. But these are the settings that you can use when you want to make your file size bigger or smaller. Look at the quality, so 1080p is fine. The quality, low, medium, high, best. If I want that file size to go down, I'll hit medium. You can see that it goes down. And the compression style is how quick do you want it to get it done, or how much quality do you want in it. So if I click better quality, it actually doesn't change this, but it changes the render time. It changes how fast. So if you want it in a hurry, hit faster, and it'll do it for you quicker. I always like to export my stuff as high as possible. Sometimes I want to send it on WhatsApp, so I try and make it, I don't know, I'll probably stick with 1080 and then hit low. And I know that 64 megabytes is how I send stuff on WhatsApp, or 65, I think. So I can send stuff quickly on WhatsApp by doing that. And then I'll go back in and say, right, now I want a real version to put on to YouTube. I'll hit best. And you see that's like a gigabyte then. For a 60-second clip, that's probably too much. Let's stick with high. 154 megabytes sounds fine. And then you hit next. And then you tell it where you want it. I'm just going to put it on my desktop for now. Hit go. And then that'll export it. Wonderful. So now it's doing that. All I need to do is sit back and wait for it to put it on my desktop. And then I can play it back. So that's really how we go about moving stuff along on iMovie. It's I still think it's a really good way of editing. It's a really good bit of software. There's loads of pros to it. We didn't even get to like the green screening stuff and the image stabilization and the likes. We'll cover those in separate videos. But it is really powerful for a free piece of software that comes with your Mac. I would say like the majority of the stuff that you want to do on it, you can do on iMovie. That you want to edit, you can do on iMovie. When you start coming towards those limitations, then's the time to start thinking about what's my next piece of software that this is holding me back now. I can move up and do and have something else. And then you get into things like Final Cut. So hopefully that walkthrough, and maybe you've walked through that with us, you'll have learned almost everything you need to do to start putting those films together. You can go out and shoot with your fellow scientists, your peers, do a little bit of your own filming on what your research is, or, if you're out in the field doing some field science, you can shoot stuff and just start editing on iMovie. Perfect is the enemy of the done, so don't worry about it. Just start editing in this, and there's an old fable of people who make lots of pots compared to people who try and make the perfect pot. If you're making lots and lots of pots, you'll get really, really good at it. So start making movies. Start getting in there and just making stuff, and then you'll learn tips and tricks. You learn the way that you want to do it, not the way that I do it. You learn your own style, and you'll make sure that you edit stuff and get stuff out for the world to see. Because the science that you do and the science that your colleagues do is worth knowing about. So short 60-second clips, even if they're for social media, they're for YouTube, wherever, they are helpful. They are very, very good. So start making those pots, start getting them out there, and start making science films. Have a look on sciencestorylab.co.uk, see all the other tutorials we've got there too. And if there's ones that you specifically want, then ask us for them. We'll be doing ones on how to green screen in iMovie and things like that as well. And we'll make sure that we're continuing updating this when new updates come out and there's more things that you want to learn. But for now, happy science filmmaking.